Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to first introduce myself. I used to be an expert of the United Nations for 15 years. I helped many governments and embassies at the times even prior to the internet to secure the infrastructure. In 1999, just because, as you know, the United Nations is not always the best place to implement projects, I moved to the private sector and I created a company in Geneva with the name WISEKey, which means World Internet Security. It is a PKI company, it's an encryption company that allows governments around the world to basically protect the infrastructure. Today my focus on my presentation is not on the company, but more on the subject, on how can we combine two forces which are contradictory forces. One is freedom and privacy, and another which is cybersecurity and cyberspace. Those two forces are one against the other, and only policy, technology, international regulations will manage to bring them to something. First of all, let's define cyber terrorists, because the definition of cyber terrorist is still very abstract. In technology terms, cyber terrorist is a criminal act perpetrated by the use of computers and telecommunications capabilities, resulting in violence, destruction, and/or disruption of services to create fear by causing confusion and uncertainty within a given population, with the goal of influencing a government or population to conform to a particular political, social, or ideological agenda. Now, if you realize what has happened in the history of attacks back from the 80s to where we are now, the sophistication of the technology is increasing, and here you have a table which describes how at the beginning the attack sophistication was basically only by guessing your password or self-replicating your code or cracking your existing computer access password. And that has, with the complexity of the internet, with the fact that the World Wide Web, as it was designed originally by CERN, it's not a secure infrastructure. Actually, when the web was designed by CERN, the idea was not at all security, but was possibility of expanding the network as fast as possible to basically all the computers on Earth. So you will see that the sophistication has enormously increased to the point that now basically cyber war is not anymore a teenager in his room attacking the Pentagon or one of the critical infrastructure. Those are very sophisticated group of people, in some cases working on the support of government funding, that they are now trained and they are now designed to make major damages. Obviously, technology is also helping. Technology that in my times when I started working on computers was X25 based, was very difficult to obtain. Now it's available by just clicking one or two websites. So this is important to say that this sophistication will increase, and as the sophistication increases, the threats becomes more and more important. So basically, where's the arsenal of terrorists? Where those terrorists are going to get those tools, those weapons that they can use then to access and make damages. So basically there are news groups. All the attacks so far organized are being discussed previously in news groups. The 9/11 attack was organized by a news group which sent pornographic data on where instructions on 9/11 attack were embedded into pornographic records. And those records were stored in a database which then was obviously used by people reading those records as a way of decrypting the information. So those are the typical attacks: sniffers, rootkits, network vulnerability analyzers, spoofing, Trojan horses, worm, and DOS. WISEKey did, for instance, one project here in Geneva. We did the e-voting project. We were the company that designed the Geneva e-voting project. Swiss people are voting using our technology. And at that time, the challenge was, how can we use computers that they are in your house, full of those things, full of Trojan horses, worm, and all kind of viruses, as a way of securing the infrastructure good enough so you can, as a user, vote over that computer, and that vote to be non-compromised. So those are the streams of the situation now. We are using very sophisticated machines full of problems on which we expect to conduct very trusted transactions. And the challenge will be how we isolate and diminish the threats, taking into consideration that zero vulnerability is impossible. So those are the critical assets that the terrorists are after. Is the government operations, gas, oil storage and delivery, water supply systems, banking, financing, transportation, electrical energy, and telecommunication. In previous warfare attacks, or a commander, let's say a country would like to attack another country, those were the first infrastructures that you have to shut down in a country in order to neutralize the capability of that country to make a response to your attack. In our days, you can do that remotely. Actually, it's more efficient the way that you will neutralize an electrical energy power line, telecommunication infrastructure, transportation from remote computers, using the fact that all this infrastructure are now based on IP addresses and internet technology. That will be basically by sending tanks to the country and neutralizing by force. So as the critical infrastructures are becoming more and more depending on the internet, attacks are more and more easy to organize. So the cost of meaning of an attack. Here I give you a definition of how the cost of capability and adaptability of that capability has been reduced. While the cost is now nearly zero, the damage and the ability of capability has become in the red line to the roof. So basically, in the 40s was invasion, in the 50s onwards was the nuclear attack and the nuclear threat. Then becomes the missile, country to country, the cruise missiles, the precision guide munitions, and today the threat is the computer. So the computer is the weapon. People don't realize that computers are weapons, especially if the person behind that computer uses that computer for hostile operations. So as the computer is a weapon and the cost of deploying that computer is so low, that weapon in our days is very easy to obtain and very easy to use against a specific target. So governments are now looking into seriously that cybersecurity and a cyber attack is actually a very big offense. I think we were not clear a few years ago that a cyber attack or a kid accessing a site on the Pentagon or a nuclear facility that was more or less like a joke or an intellectual recognition for that hacker. In our days, the legislations are moving towards realizing that an attack is a major offense, which in some cases should be punished as any other serious offense.